It was a factor that because of my tenure at the company, I was considered middle management, earning a decent salary. And the combination of them needing to save money and looking at the people who made the most money, or the people that they could afford to reduce. So in doing those, in realizing how to do that, they could have, if they were to lay off a secretary who earns a lower salary, that wouldn't give them as much savings as laying me off, because I make more money than the secretary. So if they let go of me, they would save my salary versus the secretary. They'd have to lay off 5 secretaries or 3 secretaries to save as much money as just me. My first job was at a clothing manufacturer named Michael Berkowitz Company. I got that job right out of college. It must have been about April of 1980. Michael Berkowitz was a privately held garment manufacturer. They made women's pajamas, women's bathrobes, men's bathrobes, men's pajamas, nightwear, things like that. I started out there in their accounting department, which was what I majored in college. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting. I don't recall how I got the job, but I got the job. And I stayed there for about 3 or 4 years, I don't recall. And while I was there, I made a deal with them. They were able to reimburse me for half of my tuition costs for going to graduate school. After I started there, and they paid half the tuition and the other half I paid. I knew that I needed to go into accounting because I didn't want to go into music, because music was going to be a very tough living and it wasn't going to pay me enough, I guess, to earn a decent living. I knew musicians, I met musicians in the circus who were barely making ends meet, and it was a very tough life. I was in this company, Michael Berkowitz, for 3 years, I thought it was. And then I joined it was a subsidiary of United Brands. United Brands was a conglomerate company of various Nathan's Franks, food brands of foods. They owned the Chiquita banana companies, the fruit companies that are under Chiquita. United Brands had meat packing products, meat products like Oscar Mayer or Nathan's. And I worked at this company for about 4 years as well, doing accounting work. Well, first I worked for Chiquita Banana, and then I worked for the parent company as an accountant, consolidating the results, preparing entries, preparing the books, the annual reports, the management reports, things like that. You can't do that without really understanding accounting and business, knowing what goes into cost accounting, what goes into recording assets, depreciating assets, equipment, sales, cost of sales, all these types of expenses, things like that. You learn on the job, the specifics of how that company operates. Work in a company, the idea is to progress your career. You want to, you know, the old company ladder, you start out on the bottom of the ladder, you work in the mailroom, and then you want to become this, and then you try to move up to the higher levels of the company, because there you get paid the most. There you become the bosses, there you become the management. So you start out at the beginning levels and you want to work your way up through your career. And sometimes if you can't do it within the same company, because there are people up there working there now, and unless they move elsewhere, you can't apply for their job in 5 years. Once you've learned what you do, and you want to be progressed to learn what someone else does, and eventually manage people who do the daily work, you have to move up in an organization. If the people up in those jobs today are still there, and they're not going anywhere, you're not going to progress, because they got the job, and they're not going to throw them out and put you in their job. So that's sort of like a ceiling. You know, if the senior management team is not moving, if your bosses don't move, if they don't get promoted, or if they don't get lateral moves, then you can't progress your career. So in those cases where if you see your career is not progressing, where you're not getting more responsibilities and earning more money, you look to another company to better your position. You use the experience you've learned and you apply to other jobs that call for more experience. So when I left the United Brands Company, I went to, at the time it was the American Home Foods Division, and I was a budget supervisor there. Today, so I really moved up a few levels from an entry-level accountant to a supervisor. Schering is a pharmaceutical company, and I got to Schering-Plough in 1986, and I actually stayed there for 22 years. So I was at American Home for 3 years before I went to Schering-Plough. Schering, as a big company, they offered the ability to move in various organizations. Schering has a pharmaceutical organization, they have a consumer product organization, they have a manufacturing organization, they have research finance organization, they have marketing organizations, they had various groups within the company, financial groups that did specific functions, specific jobs. And you can learn by going through and learning at each one of those functions, you can learn more. I went through 6 different jobs at Schering. Again, I rose from, when I entered Schering, I was a senior analyst, and when I left, I was a director. So I had several jobs. Each position taught me something and gave me an opportunity to progress even further. So why would I stay at any company? Because the career opportunities were at that company were enough to keep me there. I was progressing my career, moving up the corporate ladder, earning more money, taking more responsibility, learning different aspects of how a global company works. And there was no real reason for me to look elsewhere because I would be doing the same thing at any company. And here I am, comfortable with the company, comfortable with the people. And there was no reason to move out of that company and go someplace else.